Welcome back to the Glint Standard. Today we're going to be talking about the evolving world of digital advertising. Well, welcome back. Today we have Roman with us, which I think first podcast. He is our digital director. When we say, hey, we're on it, we need to talk to Roman, this is him. So thanks for joining us on your first one. It's good to have you here. The evolving world of digital advertising as it pertains today. Because I think part of it is digital advertising is always evolving to some degree, but I think we're in a kind of a unique space now. AI, the platforms are adjusting in a way they never have before. What are your thoughts on kind of where things are going a little bit, or concerns or worries, or maybe just validation for, clients or people wondering what it's like?
Yeah, I think AI is definitely the biggest game changer for everybody. I think everybody remembers 2 years ago, 3 years ago when ChatGPT came. People were concerned that their jobs are going to be lost. Everything is going to be done perfectly by AI. And I think on a back end, a lot of ad networks, they've been using algorithms and machine learning for years. They switched to a completely AI system, which the difference between algorithm and an AI is you feed AI data, then it does something, and then hopefully output is correct. But it's correct 80% of the time, which, when it comes to advertising, we cannot be correct 80% of the time. Like, we got to be correct the whole time. So I think both Google and Meta realized it's not as perfect as they want it to be, but it is the future. And unfortunately, the implications for smaller budgets is that when you run a campaign and you don't have a critical mass of a budget, you never manage to teach campaign on your conversions or what it needs to do. So, 5 or 6 years ago, if you hired a smart agency and they were scrappy, with the limited budget, we had so much control, and we could find efficiencies, and we could put it to a very good use. Now, when you're talking about smaller campaigns or limited budgets, it's very challenging because a lot of our control got taken away, because both Google and Meta want to train AI. And if we don't have enough conversions, enough clicks, enough of the data, we cannot feed that monster. When you think about ChatGPT, it scanned like the whole internet. Like, this is how much data it has. Yeah. And it's wrong. Sometimes it's wrong. Like, you talk to it, you're like, it's wrong. So that's a big challenge on all fronts. And people, both us, both clients, we need to understand the difference between algorithms and AI. We need to understand how AI consumes data, and just kind of how we prompt it and what we can expect from it.
Yeah, how do conversions play into that, do you feel? Because that's another element, right? And is conversion doesn't necessarily mean dollars in the pocket type of thing, or sale of a product specifically, right?
Yeah, of course. Like, every client is different. Somebody wants leads, somebody wants sales. The lead is not necessarily a sale. And that's on a client side, they really need to track leads, salesperson, what's happening there. So what's becoming very important, and this is how a client with a smaller budget can still compete and can still win, is what we talked about for years, like Glint integration, having your own data. Because if something is not good, we try to understand what's happening. Is it the salesperson? Is it an economy? Is it the campaign? Is it the landing page? Is it a click fraud? There are so many
things.
Yeah, there's so many things that's there, but if you don't have the data, then you don't know what's happening. Did you fire a salesperson that was amazing, and this is why year over year is down? Did we switch a campaign strategy? Is just the economy different? So if you want to compete at the age of AI, if before we were saying your own data is important, now it's a prerequisite.
There's also something compelling about that, depending on your business as well. That is your intellectual property. That's your power, your CRM. that data and what you use with that, that's where your power is. And I think people can lose sight of that, especially if they're selling product. Right? It's all about selling product or widgets or services and that type of thing. But you are really building something robust, and you have to, I believe, you have to start thinking in terms of a CRM. Like all of this, what your conversions are or what you want them to be matter, but you're also doing other things with it. And I think you get so narrowly focused on a specific result, you forget about the other results sometimes. And my thought is Google and Meta, we'll just stick with them because they're the big boys, right? Now that landscape is starting to get a lot more scattered. Like you have other options now to put dollars into, simplified platforms that maybe have different conversions. So there's a lot of that coming up now. So now we hit the challenge of, I'd love to get your thought on this. Should you be diversifying more? Because what does that do? It kicks the dollars down on the other platforms, but then puts you into this, you're not really relevant or needed or cared about on those bigger platforms. I mean, it's kind of a weird anomaly that we're in that regard too.
Yeah, I think that's a very common question. And when you approach it from not a marketing professional standpoint of view, it kind of makes sense to take your overall marketing budget and try and split it. You heard TikTok is hot right now, so let's put some money there. Let's test it out. Or Meta is not working as well. Like let's try like Reddit or Quora or things like that, which on a paper it makes sense. But what I said before about the critical budget mass, it applies. So if you are running a test, and I am for testing different things, you should know that you cannot just take a tiny portion, put it on Reddit, and say like, well, let's see if it works. It's akin to be like, let's drop one flyer one time and see if flyers work. We know that consistency work in advertising, and nobody canceled it. So I am for testing different types of networks, but you got to approach it with common sense. So if you're a moving company, advertising on Facebook, I don't know if it makes that much sense to you, because we're looking for people that want to move right now, and we don't know what they're doing on Facebook. They might be looking at trucks. Like the common sense is just not there. So while you might want to have a presence on Facebook to show off your brand for people that already want to convert, but advertising on Facebook versus say Google doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Right. So you also talk about, and we see this happen a lot too, as you have this ad budget and you have these new platforms coming in, and you're going, okay, this platform's not performing like I thought it would. We'll just say it's Meta. So I'm going to jump over to Nextdoor, Reddit, or something like that. There's also a lot of challenges that come with jumping from platform to platform, because it takes a little while for things to catch on and move, just like it used to be. Like we talked about the Yellow Pages earlier, and if you had the big ad, you were seen more, right? And if you had the little ad, and then every once in a while you're doing a little ad, you're there, but you're not going to be as relevant type of thing, right? So there's danger in jumping around back and forth through all that too.
Of course, and especially if a client operates in sort of months to months, do or die, like we need leads.
Kind of mentality wise,
yeah. So it's hard for them to even take that risk, because if this campaign is working so well and we're taking dollars out, we might be disturbing this algorithm. Then we go into Reddit that we don't know anything about it. We need completely different specs. The bidding is different. So there is risk associated with it. However, if all you do is paid ads, say on Google, you gotta know, like, you are tied to them. So if tomorrow they decide to raise prices like they did the last year, your whole profit and loss, like math, might go out of the window. If a competitor comes in, if they decide to switch their privacy regulations and you cannot run your campaign, and you build your whole business on Google Ads, you're in big trouble. That's why in Silicon Valley, they ask about your company growth for startup, and if you say paid ads, nobody's going to invest in you.
Yeah, I think diversification, just, we're talking about digital today too, but as a business in general, diversifying your outreach methods, and I'm not saying you need 20 of them, but really be intentional with the things you're doing and the expectations you want to get out of them, and understand, especially in the digital world, that the algorithms change. You have to adapt to them. Your website's part of that too, right? Everything has to adapt to the adjustments they're making to become more readily available for your audience, right? One of the other areas I want to touch on a little bit, if you don't mind, is kind of the whole privacy regulations, data restrictions, things like that. What are your thoughts through there, maybe where that's going?
It's not going to a great place.
I agree.
Like 15 years ago, 10 years ago, we could run remarketing ads. We knew we could geofence people. It was sort of a golden age for digital marketing. Now between privacy regulations that government imposes, but more of the regulations that the ad networks impose, we're almost becoming like a compliance officers where we try to do what we can, and then sometimes ads get suspended. We don't even know why. They don't tell us why. We have to guess. Some of it they tell us. So for example, one of the changes this year Facebook did is when you advertise debit cards, it goes like a credit product. So you cannot target by age, you cannot target by zip code. A lot of it gets taken away, which means the return on investment is going to be not as good as it was. And it brings me again back to owning your own data. Because if you have your own data, you can still try and target the way you kind of used to. You can also upload offline conversions to Google. You can upload your audiences to Meta. So then the algorithm, machine learning gets trained on your proper cleaned up data. So again, all of it comes down to knowing exactly what's working for you and what's not working for you. Like if you put an ad in a newspaper and they send you a report, then you work with an agency, then Meta says we got this many conversions, Google has this many conversions. Then you look, I actually don't have like any of it. So before it was nice to have some data, now doesn't matter the size of the business, you need to own it, and it needs to be valid, and that's what allows you to still compete in this privacy world. It's called like zero-party data. Zero-party is what people voluntarily give it to you. First-party data, like surveys. First-party data is what you have, like your email list, your visitors to the website. If you don't do that, the trend is more privacy, not less privacy, right? So if we're looking to the future, you need a tactic on how to work in that world.
Yeah, I found even for what we do, right? It's across the board. It becomes more than just a marketing and branding type service anymore. It's really about how are you running your business, how are you growing your business, what is that about, and really allowing us or whatever agency you use to go in, and it comes down to trust at the end of the day. There's so many competing entities out there, from individuals to smaller companies to big companies. All have good and all have bad and all have challenges in it, but who do you trust to come in and really talk to you and educate you a little bit on why you need the things you need and why that's the better path? And it's funny, when you're spending dollars every month, no matter who you are, I need a conversion, I need a lead, which usually means I need a sale. I mean, at the end of the day, that's how a customer talks for the most part. And there's so many other factors, like we talked about the intangibles. Like we can bring them to the front door, but you still have to open the door, and you have to talk to them the right way, and you've got to close them. So if the great salesperson left and your conversions are down, that's probably not digital that's causing that problem, or a magazine ad type of thing. If they're still knocking on the door, you've got to start to look at that piece internally as well, and that's a tough thing because it means you're not performing at your best. But you have to know that and be able to make adjustments for that too. So, what do you think? Anything major coming in the next 6 months, 12 months, prediction wise? You see anything crazy?
Yeah,
or is the unknown crazy?
Yeah, I'd say the main thing is Google. They're doing big shakeups. It's both organic and paid. So the search ranking volatility is higher than ever, pretty much on every single niche. They're changing a lot on the paid side. Biggest introduction is we had Performance Max, which is a black box type of a display campaign, and now they're pushing Search Max. And clients still talk to us about keywords, and I want to target this specific keyword that exact match doesn't exist in Google anymore. It doesn't mean what parameters we put. They're gonna show ads for what they want. So what clients need to think about is more topics, general topics. Like the keywords is an outdated concept. Google is going away with it. They're gonna try and take more control away from what we do, but we will still try and keep in mind who is doing what, like what interest does Google have, and what's the best interest of the client. So that's where the big shakes up are happening. Meta is more or less stable. They're just introducing more and more regulations every time we talk to them.
Yeah, I think that just leads into whether you're a marketing director or you're an agency, you just have to be agile. And clients don't always understand what's happening behind the scenes, but there's a lot happening behind the scenes, constantly being on top of it. And I think the benefit, the true benefit of having an agency and a digital marketing partner is having a little more direct contact to actual people behind the scenes at these big corporations, right? Where you're running it yourself, you're not going to have access to that. And those back ends, the back end systems are so convoluted. And a lot of times it doesn't seem like they really understand it all either. But just being able to even speak to somebody is so powerful that nobody else has. But it helps you with the trends and predictions a little bit too. You have any horror stories or lessons learned that kind of go off of? I've got one. One of ours was a client that we had, and we had done a tremendous job with them. And we drove a lot of opportunity to the front door. And even to the point that if someone filled out a form, it's driving into their Glint integration system, that's our marketing automation system, it's capturing their information, getting everything neat. And that form was so detailed, it basically said, I want to come in today and buy. And they would not open the door to it. Too busy. Ownership is into what they're doing, running the business, which is great. Trust is in different places. So you get to the point that, that we offered an 8-time return on what they're investing. But at the end of the day, the lesson learned there for us was it doesn't matter how much a client's spending, and it doesn't matter how good your conversions are if you cannot go a little bit deeper and help them understand how to open the door. Saying we did all this for you, we're doing our job is not enough anymore. It's the trust, and it's this is what you need to put into place without stepping over line and becoming the sales team for them type of thing, So for us, that was a big lesson to finally get in your head that you have to get out of what you say you do as a specific task. It's more about the result, and you're driving together as a partnership to get a result. So no matter where that's being held up, you have to be open to talk about those things, and that's something we've learned along the years. I think we do a great job at it. But any crazy stories or anything like that you've run into without naming names?
Yeah, it's actually, as clients, they have a challenge in monitoring what we do, because sometimes they might ask us, like, what are we paying you for? Because I went and saw there was no changes to the campaign. And what they don't see is we go in every day and we check how the campaign is performing. And because we're dealing with machine learning algorithms, if it's working well, the last thing we want to do is touch it. Like we want to scale it. So for example, even if we're increasing or decreasing the budget, we're not going to do more than 10% increase or decrease per day, because whatever goes into the mind of this AI thing, like we want to keep it constant if it's working.
Right.
So, the custom furniture client, e-commerce, they're selling like $2-3 million per month of custom furniture, depending on the season. And they got into their mind that we're not doing enough changes. They wanted more creative, they wanted more testing. So they started it, instead of trusting us, they started telling us what to do with the campaign. And I used to say that, marketing is like we were like auto mechanics. Like, some people know about cars, most don't know about cars, but they ask something. But now we're more like a doctor. Like, yeah, you can Google some symptoms, but you don't know what you don't know. And I follow the rule that client is always right. We're going to explain to them all of the risks. But if they tell us, do this with the campaign, we're going to do it. Long story short, the campaigns got destroyed. They lost like $500,000 in revenue because the AI basically didn't know what to do. It went to learning mode. We had to completely roll it back, which is it's not as easy as just saying like let's just do a campaign,
Right. Yeah.
because you're starting from scratch. So my suggestion is to clients is to don't look at actually what are we doing logistically. Look at the KPIs. Look at what we talked about. If we're talking about cost per lead, this is how you gauge us. If we're talking about cost per lead and quantity, gauge us like that. We're doing our best. So, if there's something we don't know and you can give us perspective from your end, so you keep getting the same leads but they don't close. This is the key portion of information we need to know, because if all we're looking is at quantity, we're doing a great job. But if you want to monitor every day what we do, it could actually hurt your campaign. So
Yeah, lessons learned for sure. Hard one to understand, but I think it's having the conversations, and your agency should be having those conversations with you, and you should be opening up about and really know, are you getting conversions but they're not closing? Because they might be closing and you don't really know. You have to really know that, and then creating a system like a CRM or working in Glint integration, it starts to validate some of that work too, which helps. But yeah, it's kind of a crazy thing. So a lot of insight. I really appreciate you being here. You are the technical guy. So if you have questions, drop us a line at agency@theglintstandard.com. You can also look on our YouTube channel and drop comments in there if you want to. And then you can find this episode in any of your favorite podcast channels. Thanks for joining us today.
thank you.
Give us a thumbs up if you like this episode, and also leave us some comments or questions. If you want to subscribe to the podcast, go right here. And if you want to watch past episodes, check it out right there.